Welcome back to Brian Knows Movies. I have been obsessing about Marvel's Phase 4. I have been ranking and reordering and overthinking Phase 4 and how the shows and the films landed, and I'm finally ready to present my case on the rankings of Marvel Phase 4. Let's go ahead and get started with number 17. What If? The animated series. Phase 4 gave us our first animated entry into the MCU, which is What If. The premise of the show is the same as the comics. Uatu the Watcher is asking questions like, what if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands? Or what if the Ravagers abducted T'Challa instead of Peter Quill? There was a lot to like about this series. We were introduced to Marvel zombies, and we got a corrupted Doctor Strange. The series even transformed Ultron into a proper multiversal threat. Still, What If ultimately doesn't work. The episodes were widely uneven in terms of quality, and the animation left much to be desired. It would have been better if each episode had its own unique animation style, but that may have been asking too much. But let's be honest, the animation we did receive just wasn't that good, especially when we're going to make comparisons naturally to DC and its animated universe. I really hope that we're going to get some better animation, some better storytelling for season 2. Number 16, Thor: Love and Thunder. I think we're getting tired of this version of Thor. Every movie has Thor playing an aloof, irresponsible jock. Thor then goes through this arc where his hubris gets in the way of him defeating the obstacles in front of him, so he must overcome himself to overcome those obstacles. At the film's end, you have a wiser, more mature Thor, only for the next movie to have Thor revert back to that same useless, dumb oaf that he was in the past. This circular development is wearing on audiences with this character. Also, it doesn't make sense, especially after the tumultuous events of Thor Ragnarok, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. Also, Love and Thunder has the most significant identity crisis of any film. On the one hand, it wanted to cater to kids, and you saw that especially with the climax of the film. But on the other, it was dealing with some really adult moments. Don't get me wrong, I actually like Thor Love and Thunder, but this continual character regression just really did that film in. Number 15, the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. What a fun special presentation from Marvel. Each character gets a little screen time, but it's Mantis that steals the show. Mantis and Drax have delivered some of the best unintentional comedy moments of the past, so pairing them up on this adventure to save Christmas for Star-Lord was perfection. Mantis received some critical character development as well. Now, I'm not sure if her unveiling her secret to Star-Lord will play any into Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but I sure hope it does. Also, even if it is just a special, they spared no expense on the production of Nowhere. I'm assuming it's the same set that they already had built for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but the Christmas decorations added a bit of pop to it that really brought on the Christmas cheer. And Kevin Bacon! Oh my goodness, Kevin Bacon was so much fun. You can tell he really enjoyed this cameo. He even set with the old 97's rock band to deliver some Christmas tunes at the end. Now, the only reason it's so low is because there just really isn't a lot of it. It's just a 40-minute special. Now, if I had a mini-series with Mantis and Drax, I'd be in heaven. Number 14, Werewolf by Night. This is another special presentation that I absolutely adored. It was fun to see how it was paying homage to those old Vincent Price style horror movies in a kind of tongue-in-cheek type of way. The fact that Gael Garcia Bernal's character's name was Jack Russell, you get it? Jack Russell? That's the type of werewolf I can get behind. As the matriarch of the Bloodstones, Harry Sensen Harris was great, and Man-Thing really stole the show anytime he showed up. Like Guardians of the Galaxy, it's just a special presentation, so I can't really get it up to the upper echelon, but I would love to see a mini-series, maybe some sort of anthology series or an episodic series where Jack and Man-Thing are basically traveling time and trying to get out of these different difficult situations. I guess what I'm trying to say is I want more Jack, I want more Elsa Bloodstone, and I definitely need more Man-Thing in my life. I would love to see him in Blade some sort of way, maybe in some sort of end credit scene. Number 13, Miss Marvel. What a delightful treat Miss Marvel was. The references to Pakistani culture and history lessons about the Indo-Pakistani conflicts, the careful treatment of Islam, and we haven't even got to the superhero aspects of it yet. Aman Vellani as Kamala Khan is so likable and so charismatic. I can't wait to see her in the Marvels and maybe hopefully a Young Avengers. Although Miss Marvel's multiversal homeworld will probably be a part of the Marvels, the show doesn't feel like it has any prominent place in the MCU. And that's fine. It is for the most part just a teen action drama. Still, having Miss Marvel in the future in over her head in New York trying to save the day and possibly needing the help of more seasoned superheroes like Spider-Man or Daredevil, that would be great. For those who were hating on the show just because of the religious and the cultural overtones of the show, just grow up. Number 12, Black Widow. I rewatched Black Widow recently and it's pretty good. It's a movie that actually gets better better with more viewing. Scarlett Johansson does her thing in the film. It actually makes me wonder why we didn't get multiple films with her at the center. The supporting cast was also incredible. Florence Pugh obviously was great, and she's going to be in it for the long haul as the new Black Widow. And David Harbour is hilarious as the Red Guardian. We'll see what he does in Thunderbolts. I even like Taskmaster. The fights, and when she showed up, she was a real problem for Black Widow and the others. And even though her final reveal at the end was a little bit lackluster, I understand that some people have even compared it to the Deadpool reveal in X-Men Origins Wolverine. I don't think it was that bad, but I see why people had issues with it. But even with that, the character was fun, and you could not make the Marvel Comics Taskmaster today. He's just too problematic of a character to be seen on TV in 2022. I'm defending Black Widow a lot, so you're probably wondering why this is so low. It's because Black Widow's just out of place. We already know that Natasha is dead and never coming back. It would have easily been the top half of Phase 3, and would have made Black Widow's death in Endgame even more powerful if we had this film beforehand. So yeah, it just seems like it's too little too late to bring in Black Widow. We could have had Black Widow be the Ethan Hunt of S.H.I.E.L.D. and go on missions in multiple movies, or at least 2 movies between Phase 1 and 3, and I think we just missed out on some really great content there. Number 11, Moon Knight. Moon Knight is the first series showing that Disney is no longer afraid of getting dark on their streaming service. Sure, WandaVision has some darker tones, but Moon Knight fully commits to the dark, the violent, and the psychedelic. Good thing too, because a Moon Knight series will be impossible to pull off without the presence of all 3. Now, Moon Knight is one of the most divisive shows of Phase 4, and that's because the character is really complicated. The actual Marvel comic character is not very likable, and oftentimes completely unsympathetic, even though you know he's struggling with mental illness. Still, we can't deny what Oscar Isaac did in this role. I think that it was award worthy in terms of what he was able to do with the multiple personalities that he portrayed. And then Ethan Hawke, my goodness, amazingly creepy character. Number 10, She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Now, what I don't understand is the hate that She-Hulk Attorney at Law has received. Repeat after me, people. Legal comedy. She-Hulk was never presented to be a classic superhero story. Most audiences hated that she was out here going on Tinder dates and defending people in the courtroom as opposed to, She-Hulk smash and all that stuff. That was never the intention of the show. Tatiana Maslany was great as the titular lawyer. I think that she was funny, both as in her human form and her Hulk form. I loved all of the cameos from Daredevil and Wong and Hulk and others. Even Griffin Matthews' Luke Jacobson answers a really funny question about superhero costumes. Where do they come from? How are they created? So yeah, this is the most representative of She-Hulk comics. It's the best of what She-Hulk, the character, is. I'm hoping that we get a season 2, even if the trolls are saying they don't want it. Number 9, Hawkeye. I always thought Hawkeye was one of the most interesting Avengers. I love how his arc is always him processing his life. He literally works with superhumans and gods on a daily basis. People hate on him because he doesn't have superpowers. All he does is shoot arrows. But when you look at those Avengers movies especially, he has some of the coolest action scenes of any character in those movies, especially Age of Ultron and then Avengers Endgame. The Hawkeye series says his life really coming full circle. His body is beaten up from his Avengers duties. He can't hear out of one ear. He's dealing with some sort of PTSD from all the battles he's been in, but also losing Natasha. And he's a soldier that's dealing with loss, but also trying to put his life back together with his family really rooting that process for him. So now he's mentoring the next Hawkeye. Haley Steinfeld excels in these roles. She's played this type of role before, and I'm not mad that she's playing it again because she's great at it. And I think that she's going to be a great Kate Bishop, and she's going to be a great Hawkeye moving forward. We probably could have done without one episode, but for the most part, it moves really fast. It's fun. It's quick paced. The story arc is great. Jeremy Renner is great. And I think it's a great send-off for his character if this is the last time we're going to see him on screen. Number 8, Eternals. Look, I am completely fine dying on this hill alone, but I think Eternals is a great film. It's beautifully shot, and it introduces a lot of philosophical questions that cosmic level comics have been asking since they were being written. Questions like how your personal point of view holds weight on what truly counts as good versus evil. It also gave some great performances. I'm thinking specifically of Ma Dong-seok. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but he's the guy that played Gilgamesh. Really powerful performance. Barry Keoghan as Druig, and then Brian Tyree Henry as Phastos. They stick out in my mind the most. It also gave us one of the best final battles of Phase 4. But I understand why it gets so many criticisms. Eternals is trying to do a lot. We have basically, 10 characters or so that are introduced to us that most people know nothing about. Even comic book readers really don't follow the Eternals like that. So you have all these characters you're trying to develop. You're trying to develop a very complicated complicated story within a featured film. Now this, out of everything that came out in Phase 4, should have been a TV show. If this was an 8 or 10 part miniseries and it still had the same budget behind it and the same actors and director behind it, Chloe Zhao was still attached to it, this would probably be #1 of Phase 4 because of talent involved. They just didn't have enough time to do what they needed to do, and that overcomplication made it very hard for audiences to connect to it. #7, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Sam Raimi returns to superhero movies. He's directing what's going to be the closest thing we have to a horror superhero film. Benedict Cumberbatch, he's excellent again. I feel like he was born to play this role. Benedict Wong as Wong, he's given a lot more to do, and it really opens up all the other cameos that we see him in. Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda is my villain of Phase 4. I think she's the best villain in terms of power set and just actual craziness, especially the shows on screen. Shushu Gomez as America Chavez is great, and I'm really interested to see what she does throughout Marvel for the next 2 phases, because she is the one that's able to jump from universe to universe. We even got the introduction of both the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, at least a little bit. You know, we got some characters from there. So there's a lot of fan service in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Probably what I would have wanted most is for it to be a rated R film that Sam Raimi could really have sunk his teeth into. Even with the constraints that was on him, he still did a lot with Wanda, but the full horror movie villain she could have been, if this was rated R, would have been great. I think this movie might have just been a year too early. I think that if this would have came out after the announcement of Deadpool 3 and the announcement of Daredevil and all those things, if it was developed after that, we might have got that hard R horror movie that we wanted. Speaking of Wanda, #6, WandaVision. We had no idea what to expect from Disney Plus in their live action series, and WandaVision was the first one, and Marvel came out the gate swinging. It's delightfully confusing, it's engaging, it's interesting. The mind-bending nature of Wanda making this world, trapping all these people in this world, having them live as 1960s sitcom characters, 1970s sitcom characters, so on and so forth. What amazing framing for the show. And then as you learn bit by bit what's going on, and SWORD trying to infiltrate what Wanda is doing, you really get a sense of, okay, they told me that Wanda is a superhero because she's an Avenger, right? But is SWORD really that wrong for trying to save these people and putting the whole might of the military against a threat at the level of Wanda? I don't think she's somebody you should be negotiating with either. This is probably Elizabeth Olsen's greatest acting in all of Marvel is this series. Paul Bettany as the Vision, he's also amazing, and I really hope that we see him in more things moving forward. I keep saying that because I want all these characters and everything. I know that's not possible, but man, a new Vision, the White Vision, trying to learn if he should be a destroyer or a savior again. I think that's the series I would love to follow myself. And hey, it was Agatha all alone, and her unveiling as the true antagonist of the show really catapulted to another level. #5, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This show is a lot more grounded. It reminds me much more of Captain America and the Winter Soldier in terms of how grounded it is. Not dealing with multiversal threats, but the actual fallout of what happens when you snap half the population away and then snap them back to Earth. Of course, there's going to be all this political turmoil and refugees. It's going to be a really bad situation, and I'm glad that they tried to address these things as best they can in a real world type of way. Anthony Mackie as Falcon and Sebastian Stan as Winter Soldier have great chemistry together. They do a pretty fine job in terms of the character development itself, especially Sebastian Stan trying to deal with the guilt of what he's done and trying to atone for all the sins he did when he was under mind control. You would probably say, well, why don't you just get over it? You were mind controlled, but that's easier said than done. I really appreciate them hammering that home. I really like that they dealt with the racial overtones of what it means for a black Captain America. How does he wear the flag, knowing the history of what that flag means for black people, and how does he use it to really show how we can be better moving forward? I thought all that was great. I did not love the ending of this show. I thought it was kind of lackluster, but even with that, it's making top 5 because of the significance of the performances, and it was really great from episode 1 until the finale. I thought that it was above most things that we've seen this phase. #4, Spider-Man No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home was the most crowd-pleasing project of Phase 4 in my opinion. It was a little gimmicky, you know, with them having all 3 Spider-Mans come back, but that was what brought audiences to the theater. But I don't think that that's why people continue to go see this movie time in and time again. I think the theater experience worked because this movie looks absolutely stunning. It's one of the best looking films of Phase 4. I also think that the acting was great. What we got from Tom Holland, this is probably his best performance, not only as Spider-Man, but in any other film too. He was really bringing it in this film. They gave Zendaya more to do. She had had more emotional weight through the story and actually was able to be a little bit of a hero herself. I think that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire showed you why they are amazing actors and they're award-nominated actors. They have little bits of dialogues that they really put some emotional weight to, and I thought that was amazing. I say that Wanda is the best villain of Phase 4, and I stand by that, but man, Willem Dafoe really made you hate him. You hated Green Goblin. When he did the things he did to Spider-Man, you wanted Spider-Man to take his head off, and you wouldn't have been mad if he did. So yeah, it's crowd pleasing because you get it all. You get great effects, you get great comedy, you get these heartwarming moments, you get these broken moments, you get a great villain, a great protagonist across the board. Everything you would want in a popcorn film like this, you receive. I'm hoping that this is not the last really great Tom Holland Spider-Man film. I know that he's not going to play this role forever, but as long as they can keep him, they should keep him. Number 3, Loki. If Spider-Man No Way Home is the most crowd-pleasing movie, then Loki is the most crowd-pleasing show. Marvel had no option but to transform Loki from this mustache-twirling, very angry villain to a bit of an anti-hero and really play up that God of Mischief part of Loki's character. And the reason why is because Tom Hiddleston is too charismatic, he's too likable. I don't care how pale you try to make him with makeup when he's being really villainy, you just like the guy. So it's great to see him be that anti-hero and be that God of Mischief in this show. When he gets called by the TVA and they're talking about terminating him, you are really rooting for him to best the organization. And then you get to add Mr. Likeable Owen Wilson to the mix as Mobius as well. That partnership is great. It's a great cat and mouse game through time. And then you get Jonathan Majors. You get Jonathan Majors as the one who remains. And his explanation of the multiverse and how it works and setting up everything for the next probably 4 years. That moment was so important for the progression of Marvel, and they absolutely nailed it. I love the show and I want more of it. So we're at the final 2, and thank you so much for sticking with me for this long. If you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel. I would love to have you continue to view my content and give me your feedback. What do you think about this performance? Or what do you think about this director? I want to have those conversations with you. But to do that, you have to subscribe and hit that notify bell so that you know when new content comes out. Number 2, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I know that Black Widow came out earlier, but this is really, to me, the first true film of Phase 4. And what a way to start it off. A character that's not really well known amongst the masses, but comic book people know him. And to introduce him in such a way and also give it this beauty and this mysticism and this culture, it was really well done. I believe that Simu Liu is a star in the making. I think that we're going to see him in a lot of stuff, hopefully with Marvel and outside of Marvel, because he's so good. He breathes action star, specifically martial arts action star. And that's also because this is a great kung fu film. We get some of the best karate sequences and kung fu sequences of the past 5 years in this Marvel film. I think his believability with his training and being able to give that performance really set this movie apart from others. Tony Leung's Shu Wen-chu, he was a great villain as the dad who was overbearing and heartbroken. He was very sympathetic, but not sympathetic to the point to where you were not afraid of him and afraid of what he was going to do to others. I think Awkwafina was great as the platonic best friend, and emphasis on platonic. I think if this was 5 or 10 years ago, they would have force-fed us a romantic relationship between Simu and Awkwafina's characters. I'm glad that they didn't do that. We need to see more platonic relationships on screen. It just makes things more interesting. When they arrive to Tao Lao, it reminds me of a Studio Ghibli film, how pretty it is, how creative it is, the creation of the animals that were specific to Tao Lao. It was beautiful. And then the final fight, electrifying to see this war and Tao Lao defend itself from these invading dragons, basically, were coming to kill him. And Shu Wen-chu still battling his own mental demons because he's being basically corrupted by this evil force that's going to destroy everything. Anyway, Simu Liu, I need to see him in more films as Shang. He was great, and I think that he can be an anchor of all of Marvel moving forward for the next few years. Number 1, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. So most probably could have guessed that this is going to be my number 1, how I've been gushing over this film. I've already said so much. I love the tribute to Chadwick Boseman. I love the processing of grief, the anti-war messaging, the cultural reference that's given to the Talokan and how they connect that to ancient Mayan, Indo-Mayan culture. Letitia Wright gave a powerful performance. It's pretty much locked in that Angela Bassett is going to get nominated for Best Supporting Actress for any award that's out there, and she'll probably win a few of them as well. I actually think that this is going to be crowded out of the Best Picture conversation, specifically at the Oscars, because we have films like Top Gun Maverick and Avatar: The Way of Water, these popcorn films that make a lot of money. I think for the Academy voters, that's going to push Black Panther out of the way. I hope not. I would love to see it get nominated as well, but I see those two getting into it before Black Panther. But if they get the costume design again, especially if Angela Bassett wins an Oscar, I think that says everything about the quality of this movie. Woo! Okay, so that was a mouthful. I am so glad that you stuck with me. Let me know what your rankings are in the comment section below. Thank you, and I will see you at the theaters next week.